it's funny because when he was there, that's when we started teaching that. He loved it. Until he got to a certain age, and then he starts off. And so he wouldn't.
I wasn't sure if you remembered or not.
I didn't.
I think you're picking one early in the year.
It's kind of weird that it's like, this is early older. Right, right. That's true. Yeah, because we're getting sick, we haven't been to sleep.
I didn't.
I mean, we haven't been. I kept saying this for a long time.
Something I felt for sale and the old one.
It's gone now. We got it back.
Took it out and
I've done a little bit to
For.
it. Fix a couple more things.
You know, we sit down and we're TV and I say, now we'll sleep. One of us would sleep. You just couldn't get enough. Yeah. Didn't know energy. Yeah.
That clock's a little kind of slow, it's 7 o'clock.
Call me in the world, all right. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Police report.
You have a copy of the report in the packets.
Okay. Fire report.
So we had a total of 32 runs last month. Says in the packets 10 fires. Break that down as 2 structure fires, 3 false alarms, 3 further smoke or carbon monoxide alarms going off. All those were false alarms. 1 downwire and 1 animal rescue. And then we had 19 medicals, 1 medical in the village.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Hey, I'm Lloyd County Commissioner. Last week at our Committee of the Whole meeting, held the final public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant for housing. That passed. It was originally for $590,000, but when the final criteria came was discovered the county could only apply for $500,000 in funding, so we had to hold another hearing with that reduced amount. The biggest thing is, we authorized the purchase of a system called Aqua Eye and Aqua Eye Reach. It's a handheld sonar system, for the sheriff's dive team. This system uses AI and sonar to locate bodies in the water. They can scan in 5 minutes up to 85,000 square feet. Across the U.S., there's 4,000 drownings every year, and we got another tool in this county to help locate unfortunate victims of drowning. The only other county in the state that has this at the moment is Oakland County. Authorized submission for the second half of our calendar year funding for corrections officer training reimbursement. Authorized a request to pay our corporate counsel and our labor attorney. And we also authorized a request by Buildings and Grounds to allow our Buildings and Grounds Director, John Bussell, or Administrator Moses Sanzo to authorize payments and accept bids related to the removal and reconstruction of the water park at Torzuski. And unfortunately, there was a member of the Veterans Affairs Board that had not been participating. Unfortunately, Mr. Lawson, we did vote to remove him from the board due to non-participation so that somebody else that can be an active participant can come forward and put their name in and be added to that board. It's a small board, so it's important that members show up for that. And that's all I've got, and I'll give this, I got some information on that sonar system if any of you are interested in reading a little bit more about that. So, and with that, unfortunately, I have to leave because I have another meeting to go to, but you guys have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Planning Commission,
No meeting.
DDA, Linda.
We talked about, the building, the pavilion, thank you very much. We talked about it, possibly moving it back. This kind of kicked a lot. We would like to get it started after, Metamora Days. So, and then the company that we're looking at, they had a couple other estimates. Company we're looking at, could complete it within, I believe, 30 days was done. So, but it wouldn't be something, we would let it go until Metamora Days, and then afterwards we would,
Yeah.
have it on that. So,
That's exciting.
yes.
Didn't they okay too to pay for the basketball?
Yeah, oh yes, thank you,
I heard that. I
the
didn't-
basketball, hoop was busted down at the, Lions Hall. So the DDA decided that we would replace that, because it's glass, or it's, what is it? It's not plexiglass, but it would shatter, it's cracked, so no one got hurt. So then they talked about putting something on it that said, was sponsored by the DDA, just so people knew that. That's pretty much it.
Attorney report, we probably got everything down below. Okay. Council communications. No more of these stuff, and that's down on the bottom. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion to approve the agenda, consent agenda. pardon me.
Second.
All right, somebody seconded.
You got two.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Public time.
I'll go first. All right, so Tina, I noticed you had the opportunity to tell people about your new policy, that you have to FOIA information for the meetings other than the agenda, but you didn't communicate that. I think when you make a new policy, it's really important to make it fair to everybody and let people know. So just note it. I have more to say about that, but we got to get to what you're going to vote on today, which is Metamora Days. At the last meeting, which was in May, because you guys didn't come in June, even though we had important things to talk about, I talked about how I was absolutely horrified by the 2023 application for Metamora Days. And I say that with 10 years in professionally doing events. And I know what typically goes in, and I know how incredibly inadequate that was. And so on top of most of your piles is the complaint that I filed at the last meeting that didn't happen. And we need to go through this. Because Tina tried to obstruct me, but I did get the application for 2024, which is almost this couple of hairs above this one that I wrote in detail this complaint about. And you know what, I just went through the basics. There's a whole lot more that goes on with event planning. So I also want to note the 2024 application, which is in your packets, is not signed. There's a typed name. By the way, I have a feeling I know who typed it because they had access to the file. So, Tina, did you perhaps type that for them?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Well, it's not a signed application. I noticed that you removed the police chief approval line in there, but we need to go through. That application is grossly inadequate. It is missing so much information, okay? The spelling errors in there could make it legally not good, all right? You could really end up in a lot of trouble from that. It was an incomplete application, just like the 2024 application is. Security, not a single mention of security. Not a single mention of traffic control, no street closings. Now, in the 2024, there's a map in there that you can't even see the roads, and it's the parade route, but it doesn't say what roads are gonna be closed or when or where. Use of village properties, still got that completely erroneous map of Harmer Park. It's got nothing to do with reality out there. So wrong that it is just ridiculous. No map of Metamora Community Park, the 40-acre park, where so many of the events take place. So that's just completely left out. And oh gosh, and are we gonna have monster trucks out there again? Because boy, that should really be on there, because as I wrote in here, a police officer actually last year pointed out to me how absolutely unsafe it is to have those monster trucks right where they are. And I think the slopes out there, if you had that professionally evaluated, you would not be allowed to have that event. And it looks like that's under the control of the Lions, but they don't put anything into this. Yeah, so food and beverages, not even marked. Booths and tents. Listen, I have so much experience having tents professionally set up and setting them up myself and going through the permitting process and being inspected. And we have tents out there every time I've been to the Balloon Festival in Metamora Community Park. There's nothing on the maps. How are they gonna be set up? Are they gonna be set up safely? Parking for participants. Now, somebody added in to the 2024 one that parking is in the front field. That's it. So there's no mention of the shuttle service going back and forth. They go through 2 townships, actually. Restrooms. Nothing about restrooms. Cleanup procedure, it's kind of in there, but you know. By the way, setup typically takes place like a week before the setup time that is put in there. Liability insurance, well, probably they have it. But you didn't give any guidelines for how to do it. Last year was not approved by the Village Council. I have no doubt that you will all vote for it today and approve it, even though I think that is highly negligent to approve an incomplete and just really erroneous application. Again, Lions, if we were in Metamora Township, there is an outdoor assembly ordinance that would cover, and they would have to present a plan. They would have to show their safety issues. They would have to get approved as well. We don't do that here. We just let them do whatever. It's just immediate change is needed here. I'm absolutely horrified that anyone would let this go by. Did anyone do any research, by the way? Anyone at all? Since the last meeting. This, in your packet, I gave you a very basic checklist that could be used by someone inspecting these, because typically you have a fire marshal that comes out and inspects before the event is allowed. This one I found online, really detailed, but gosh, they've got a lot of good dimensions and all kinds of stuff in there. So yeah, a lot for you all to think about, but you approve that today, you are voting against public safety, because that is absolutely wrong to accept an application that erroneous.
Good evening. My name is Greg Wise, and I'm a candidate for Fair County Commission District 6. And I want to take a minute tonight to talk about my qualifications, particularly in the financial area. A major part of the county board is allocating budgeting county resources, which are taxpayer money. And I have not only 24 years of doing the budget for district court, but I also have experience both in education and work experience. My undergraduate degree from Michigan State is in accounting. After my first year of law school at the University of Michigan, I took a little over a year off to make money to pay for it. I paid for both my undergraduate law school, and I didn't believe, still don't believe in borrowing money for higher education. But I worked for a statewide CPA firm for 17 months. During that time, I passed the CPA exam. I worked on the audit of both public and private entities throughout the state of Michigan, from the UP down to Saugatuck. I have the experience. You know, our present board, which has been there a little over 18 months, have really had a pretty easy job. Number one, they've had $17 million in ARPA money to use. In addition, the taxpayers voted for the law millage at 1.45 mils, which is actually about 40% of the general millage. That's like a 40% raise. I'm old enough, and I think a lot of you are as well, that you realize that our economy goes up and down. I mean, I was in district court in 2001 when we had the dot-com bubble bust. In 2009, when the subprime mortgage collapsed and real estate prices dropped unbelievably quick, and some financial institutions went belly up. I mean, we had to do with less. And I found places in district court to save money. You know, we didn't have any raises, and that was expected. But we cut some of our expenses without cutting services to the people who needed them. So I'm the one who's qualified to make those decisions. As they say, eventually, and I don't want it to happen, but eventually we're gonna have an economic downturn. It happens, and particularly in Michigan. As they say, when the rest of the country catches a cold, Michigan gets the flu. And so I would ask for your vote in the August 6th primary, and I thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Next public time.
Amber Clark, 3927 Norfolk Street. I'm just following up on last month's meeting, or 2 months ago when we were here. I have more water samples to show you all. I have sent them to Tina via message. However, I do want the rest of you all to see them.
Are these recent?
Since the last meeting that we had, yes, these are.
Cause I only have one message from you after the last meeting.
I do have dates on all of
Okay.
them, so.
Cause Brian's been doing some different things up at the wells and he thought he had it figured out.
The most recent one was last weekend, I believe. I do have some neighbors that also are still having issues. Frequently in toilets is where it's being noticed the most, just because a lot of, you know, drinking water is being done through bottled water. As you can see, I have a lot of bottles of water I've been drinking at my house, trying not to drink the tap water that's coming through. So I save my bottles, and then that's when I do notice that it's brown, I try to bottle it the best that I can, so.
The last month or so, he's been doing ice passing something like that, I forget what exactly he said. So we thought, I hadn't got any more messages from anybody, so we thought maybe that had fixed the problem, he was gonna reach out to you and see.
No, he has not reached out to me at all.
Thank you.
Stephanie Burmeister, 3926 North Oak, and I have a couple more samples too. These are from after the last meeting. It kind of sits on the bottom like a sediment, and then we did have today brown water in the toilets. I think you notice it more because it's, you know, a white toilet bowl. So I think that's why it's, you know, especially if it's the light one, if it's not really, really strong, you notice it more when it's sitting in the toilet rather than if you're just running the tap. But I would really love to know, like, it just concerns me that we're getting ready to kind of push our water out of the village, and we don't know exactly what's going on with this yet. So, is there an update on?
No, like I said, we had no other complaints. I know you had messaged me,
Yeah,
and like I said, I
That was
haven't
a few weeks
received
ago.
anything, so he thought what he was doing was working because we hadn't gotten any more information from anybody. I can't figure out why it seems to be only North Oak Street. It's not throughout the whole system. It's not coming from the water tower like that. It's not.
and like we said before, it's really intermittent.
Yeah.
And, you know, I noticed, you know, we all have softeners. We have softeners that we keep filled and maintained, and our softener is only a couple of years old. So I'm really not sure what else.
Same,
you know.
two years ago when we were
3-9.
in, so.
3-1, North Oak, Jan, Lily. Same thing. It's on, going. And it seems to be more so when we've had a heavy rain, because we are the recipients of a flood every time it rains. That starts up at the top of Oak and falls right on down. So, there's something going on.
When did it come back?
Yeah,
It gets
what,
tested once a year, right, Tina?
Our water gets tested all the time. The
Okay.
consumer confidence report goes out once a year.
Okay.
They do daily testing, like chlorine residuals, things like that. Then they do monthly testing, and then certain things like lead and copper, things like that. It's on a monitoring schedule from the.
Who gets
From-
that, like, who gets those results? Like,
Right.
does the village have access to that, or is it just Brian that has
No,
access?
the village has access to it. Anybody can look up the results. I can give them to you anytime you want.
Are they posted daily, or,
No,
so they're just like logged here?
yeah.
Okay.
They're logged with the state. They're logged here.
so do they know what that is?
I mean,
'Cause we don't
it's
drink our
iron.
water.
They do know that it's iron or rust. I mean, like a better.
It shouldn't be there.
No.
When
No.
was the last time they flushed a hydrant?
Right before.
Why they did it right
before
before.
the May meeting.
Yeah, right before the May meeting.
Can we have Brian next month
Absolutely.
here?
Let's put him on the hot seat.
See if they,
Yeah,
Yeah.
put him on
see
the
if
hot
they've got a
seat.
specialist they can send in too.
Something.
We
Something
need
to get
to
to the
get some
bottom.
answers.
Right.
Yeah, because we've stopped drinking our water.
Mhm.
Are
We
all
get
the
by-
samples from North Oak Street?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can pull some from my house too. So it's not just,
Right.
No,
But
it's
it
the
seems to be just
whole.
North Oak Street is what's weird.
Mm.
I have seen though that there have been other comments
Through
that
on
are
Facebook.
not just on
Right.
North Oak.
No, and like the one, I know there's one up on Second Street who, like, but it was like when we were flushing hydrants and she was
Right.
filling our bathtub and stuff like that.
I know Keats have had issues, people in Jamestown have had issues,
Right.
like,
Okay. But again, though, it's that
That
same
section,
area.
I do believe Linda Miller commented somewhere,
When it was
she's
flushing
had
the hydrants.
issues.
Yep,
It
she
was
did.
before the
Was it?
hydrants.
Mhm.
yeah, I think we need to have Brian in here
Yeah.
and somebody maybe above Brian.
Yes. I
To
agree.
get some answers. This trying a few things
Isn't working.
isn't working. And everybody's paying a water bill and can't even drink their water, so.
I did go above Brian after the May meeting and reach out to his boss, and he didn't really give us great answers. He kind of played around with, oh, it could be this, could be that, type of kind of Brian.
Yeah.
Um,
Whoever he included in that last email, when he responded to my email, there was somebody else included in that, I assume it was his boss. They did not respond to my last email either.
No, that wasn't
When
his boss. I think
called
that's
them.
one of his office ladies that's supposed to be like checking his stuff for spelling and things.
Okay, because I had said, you know, we have a softener, we
Right.
don't have the galvanized piping, like, the
Right.
well out front
Right.
is not anywhere connected to what's coming into our house, like, all of the things that Brian has directed us to are not the case, so.
No, because we all,
How long, when did this first start? It's been a couple of months, right?
It's been
long
months.
as, yeah, it's been more of like a
So-
year.
Okay, one person at a
Yeah,
time.
Sorry.
Sorry.
But yes, it's been an ongoing issue, and I will have Brian and his boss here next month, or at least his boss.
Thank you.
You definitely need to get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely.
Any other public time?
You're a plumber.
I know.
Unfinished business.
Nothing to report on the park restaurant.
Think so? Water main extension. Huh?
I have to go back to the beginning a little bit, when we first signed the agreement to provide water for the system out into the township. It was done based on the assumption that the line would go essentially all the way out into the township and loop around, sort of on the north side of the, where the lagoon facility is, and come back in and connect back with the village system. So the original system was designed as a loop. Months and I think if not years went by, and the Southern group came back to us and said, we're having trouble getting approvals for the easements that we need to be able to connect the loop. And as a result, they came back with a new proposal and said, what we'd like to do is just run it out there and sort of stop it out in the township and provide the water that way. So essentially, they're talking about going to a loop system to a no-loop system. Even some of the early estimates that they gave to us, they were assuming a very large volume of water going through their system. And immediately Roe flagged that and said that that number they had in there, if I'm not mistaken, it was over 1,000 gallons a day. They said that number is wildly high. And I'm gonna let, at this point, I'd like Doug Scott, the engineer from Roe, to sort of jump in and sort of give us a sense for what's the industry standard like in terms of expectations for volume per day. You told me some great numbers today in comparing it to surrounding counties, so I'm gonna let you step in and address that.
Doug Scott from Roe Professional Services Company. Paul was not able to be here tonight, but he asked me to come, and I've been working with him on this as well. But the last communication, I think they lowered it down to 400 gallons per day per residence. On that, the industry standards that we use when we're planning systems and stuff on that is typically from 10 state standards is based on 100 gallons per person, per resident, or per person, and they base it on 3.5 people average per house on that. So usually the max that they look at is around 350 gallons per day, but looking at like Genesee County, Oakland County and stuff like that, most of them are down closer to 300. Genesee County, a lot of times will depending on where they're at, will go a maximum of 315 gallons per residence, and then they also go down. Oakland County will go down to about 285 gallons per residence. So the latest communication was at 400 gallons. So again, it's still probably 25% higher than it needs to be on that. And the difficulty with that is if they're basing that usage off of that, they're also basing the water age off of that as well. And so if you're not using that much water, your water's gonna be older and staler, I guess, at that point.
So what happens to the water if it sits too long in the pipe?
Again, it will, number one, it will start to look a little bit like that because sediment will build up. But it also, the chlorine dissipates at that point. I mean, the chlorine in the system is to prevent bacteria and stuff, and as it encounters bacteria, you need more and more chlorine in that. So you would have to, someplace in there, you would have to inject more chlorine, and again, the more chlorine you put in, the staler the water gets at that point. As far as you can develop taste issues and stuff like that, as well as chlorine byproducts and stuff like that in there as well.
So we raised these issues that their water volume estimates were much higher than we would expect according to industry standards. As a result, the water's gonna be in there much longer than you're projecting it to be, and we're concerned it's going to be less safe. Now, I wanna be one thing absolutely clear. Our job is literally to provide them potable water into their pipe, and that's the end of our obligation at that point in time. So practically speaking, our job is to provide potable water that complies with lawful standards into their pipe, and what they do with it from there is up to them. Remember before they wanted the village to build the system with their money, and then we operate it forever from there. And virtually every projection model that we ran said, you're all gonna go broke. So we said, we're not gonna operate your system. And so then they went back to, okay, we'll build the system and we'll operate it, you just provide us the water. And that's how we cut the last deal, which assumed the loop. And then we came back and said, no, we're not gonna do the loop. So, first of all, we complained to them about their volume estimates that were still high, and frankly, they're still high. And which means that they're assuming the water is going to be more fresh and more new than it really is. Now, you say, well, if we're not responsible for water once it goes into the pipe, why do you care? Well, the problem is, I'm an attorney, and I know what happens. I've done plaintiff's work, I've done defense work, and I know exactly what happens when the water goes bad. Ask the folks in Flint, ask every professional that got anywhere near that problem in Flint. They sue everyone in sight. I don't care if our water is perfect, they're gonna say it must have been your fault. And so we're gonna be in the first line of people to get sued. And I would just say as an aside, yeah, obviously there's no way on earth I'm gonna encourage the village to sign up that next round of the agreement until they correct that problem.
Right.
That's a given. So the issue is liability risk. We're not responsible for what they do with the water, but we also know that the worse that system is designed, the more risk and liability risk involves for the village, regardless of whether or not we should be legally responsible for it. So one of the things they did within the last 60 to 90 days, they came back to us with a proposal that lowered the number down to estimate down to 400 gallons. And they said, tell you what, we'll build a new chlorine residual facility pretty close to where our water goes into their system, with the idea that they would be adding more chlorine into the system. And so I'll give them credit for an improvement in the system. But I have still reiterated to them over and over again, your system still has some inherent risks with it that you will probably never be able to get rid of, and those include the fact that it is a low volume system with a small number of users. And that's always gonna be true. And so, you know, what we did after we saw their proposal, we said, we want a cash cushion of $500,000 up front for you to hook up, so that we have a cushion in place that we leave there, so that it builds up a cash cushion, so that we have an extra cushion of protection that we can rely on. We also said that some of the facilities that they were including in the new system would be a backflow preventer, so that their water couldn't come back into our system. And some other facilities out there, a test station where it would be easier for us to engage in ongoing testing, and so they're building that, but it's on our property, and we wanna be in charge of maintaining it. Well, that does mean more money over time, and so that, we took that into account as well. So, at this point, I'm in a position where, yeah, I do like to reward them for making good improvements. I think they're a long ways off. Initially, the initial plan said they would pay us $50,000 for the easement, and our comeback this round was $500,000, so we're a long ways off. If it were me, I'd probably recommend to the village that we reward them some for the improvements they had made, and say, all right, our cushion would be okay if it was like $475,000. But I'd like to see us be strong in our negotiations, and they aren't budging very far, and I'm not inclined to see the village budge a whole lot beyond that. So one issue is the cash cushion. The second issue were some additional provisions that they asked to include in the revised agreement, which dealt with access to our system. For example, they had a provision in it that said, if you run into a problem with some of the equipment over there and you guys don't fix it within 24 hours, we get to go in and fix it ourselves. And I said, you know, I'll bet you when you hook up to the Detroit water system, they don't give you access to go in and have their experts come in and dig up your system without telling you first. So I have told them in no uncertain terms that we certainly would not agree to access provisions like that. But both the other attorney and I agreed that if the cash cushion were resolved, we certainly could negotiate something mutually agreeable on the access provision. So we really haven't gotten down to the weeds on the access provision, but I did indicate to them that I would come back to you with what they've done so far and the progress in the discussions, and just get a sense from you for where you stand. So I'm happy to answer questions. Mr. Scott is here to answer the engineering side of the questions, and this is obviously a very important thing. Important for them, and it's important for us too. We're not just hooking up a water system, we're hooking up to potential liability, and we need to be cautious.
Some of the wide area they've got up there, up Shalimar and Hawkeye Hill, seems like they ought to be able to put kind of a small loop right up in that area. That would help quite a bit.
Mr. O'Meara keeps.
I mean, I've walked some of it, you know, when we were out.
Doug can probably reiterate this, but Mr. O'Meara tells me over and over again, I've probably asked that question 5 times, he says, that loop up and in there does not solve the problem.
Right.
Because all it does is circulate the bad water in circles up there.
Right, because.
Not connecting back in.
Correct, and then you gotta be a little careful, because then if you had a true loop system, you have multiple connections to the village system. And that's, you know, that's, and really, you're trying to keep that isolated as much as you can.
Because if there's a true loop, there's something coming back into the village system.
Correct.
So if it's sitting out there stagnant and.
Well,
wouldn't have to.
it would actually help that, because it would be feeding from both directions. But then you also open up your liability that at that point, the village would almost have to own and maintain that system so that you're protecting all your residents.
Because the problem would be if you had a rupture in their system.
Yes.
Right.
And I was reminded of this last year when Montgomery County had a big rupture in their system and a pipe about this big around. And immediately they shut their water down, they went to boil water instructions, and it lasted for days. The real problem here is, the issue there was they controlled the entire system. So it's just a matter of them getting in and doing the work. For us, if we did that and they own the system and we do not, it would mean they have a rupture out there, and then we'd have that stuff coming back into the system, and there wouldn't be anything we'd be able to do about it, which is not a good deal for our folks. So I don't want to cry too much about no loop, but the fact that it is a dead end, low volume system out there means that there are some liability risks for us, and I want to make sure we're protected.
That's what we've said all along, we wanna make sure financially too, it's not costing the village
Can
residents.
we roll things back and say we want a loop?
I'm not sure you want to loop.
But do we have a
Yeah.
loop?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think that it
Gives
takes the
us-
risk of.
There's reasons
Yeah.
why not, too, so.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not
you-
about this close to just saying, get it.
That's where I don't understand, I mean, Suzy
We
mentioned
were
it
trying
before,
to help.
can't we put a date on it and be like,
We were trying to help all those
It's
residents out there,
ridiculous.
but it's just gotten to be,
I have my own suspicions that there's different interests involved, including the settling group, which apparently has some sort of deadline in another year or two, where there are gonna be less restrictions they're gonna be under. I kinda get the impression they wanna run the clock out and maybe not end up having to build it. They're accusing us of being the ones that are slowing the process down. You can take your pick. I don't get too
they
interested.
put delay after delay after delay.
So you're wanting a motion basically to say 475,000 as the cushion
Yeah,
of,
we
like
would,
a
the
500,000,
village would agree to accept that as the cash cushion. That's not an acceptance of their agreement.
right?
That's only dealing with one issue, which is, we would agree to the cash cushion being 475. We still have to negotiate the access provisions and the rest of the agreements.
We want that money
Yeah, that would be fine. I wanna make it clear that we're not agreeing the entire agreement. We haven't finalized an agreement on the rest of the provisions. But that would be our current number in terms of our proposals for a cash cushion.
One of our main things.
What do you want,
Council understand that and don't
what do you want the motion to say? I mean, we're not agreeing with the advice of our attorney and
We would agree to a cash cushion in the water agreement of $475,000. This is not an agreement to the rest of the terms, and those need to be negotiated separately.
I'd like to make the motion.
I'm right.
Is there a second?
I'll second, please.
Move to second it to agree with $475,000 what retainer.
It's basically the hookup fee. I call it the cash cushion, but it's basically the hookup fee.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Scott, for coming.
New business. Metamora Country Days event.
Well, as you guys know, you have my applications in your packet. I do have a copy of their insurance. I don't know why I didn't submit it with this. The same insurance, you just, every year they automatically just mail to us, the insurance company does, so I do have a copy of it in the file.
Does Mr. Denney look over that insurance?
Not
Or anyone?
recently.
Pardon?
Not recently.
Their clients all got all their own insurance,
Right.
it's all separate. And they have special event insurance.
Did you put us as a rider or as a additional insurer?
It's the council's pleasure on this question. Up for what?
How many years have you been doing this?
Right? I don't know, they've been doing my more since before I.
Before you're bored?
Yeah. We did start making, doing an event application, I'll say roughly 10 years ago. Before that, there was nothing on file, they just automatically did it. I think they would maybe ask for permission.
Everything back then was just kind of a verbal thing,
Right.
with no,
So,
I know my
But
kids,
that was back then.
my kids have been coming to it since they were that high, and they're now in their mid-30s.
It's a crapshoot on who we can please.
Yes, sir. We've been named as an additional named insured with Alliance for a while,
and chamber and,
in the chamber. Have we ever had to submit a claim?
no.
And that's been going, you said that part of it's been going at least for 10 years or something?
At least, and I can look
I
back
think
at
it's
the
more
file.
than that.
yeah.
Time flies when you're having
I
fun.
know.
I lose track of time a little bit.
Kind of short notice to start throwing a whole bunch of new changes into them, you know. We decide we wanna do something, we can work on it, or, upgrade it a little bit differently during the year, after this year sometime.
Well, obviously, we need to restructure our applications.
Tweak it a little maybe here and there.
Prior to approval to this one, or?
No, I would, let you make that as a motion.
as submitted.
I'll second.
And moved and seconded to approve the Metamora Country Days event application as submitted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes for this year. Metamora Country Days fireworks. You probably heard it. Me and my group won't be doing it anymore. We retired out of the business. So they have done some research and come up with, Michigan Family Fireworks to do it. They're getting all the paperwork righted around where the proofs of insurance, same thing, lists the DDA, the township, the village, but it's what we need is permission for, fill out the permit, federal permit basically, for them to use the sewer lagoon and to purchase some of the product as in the past for the event.
Last year, we purchased $3,000 worth of product.
So, and they're based right out of Leonard.
Have they given us an estimate of what their cost would be?
$11,490.
I think that's roughly what it was last year.
Yeah,
That's for the complete show.
Yes.
and I've got what we, in the business, called the grocery list. I've got a copy of that, what they're saying they're gonna do up there. And it looks like they're gonna have some really nice shows. So. And it's also, what I was told, Matt Reams, that owns the Dryden Bar, their cousins, Matt used to do it years ago, because Matt wanted me to go to work for him. So I know of them, and I know that they've been around for quite a few years, so it's not like they're hiring somebody
They
brand
actually
new.
did a show down at the Lions Hall a couple years ago for one of their daughter's weddings.
Right.
And same thing, they had the permit, they had the insurance, they had everything, and I did look into them at that time, they were a legit company, and
I've done fireworks with them for parties. That's why I was asking.
they know what they're doing.
Michigan Family Fireworks LLC.
Yes. So we need two separate motions. If you would like to allow them the use of the sewer lagoon property, that has to be a motion, and then if we're going to purchase any product for the fireworks show.
I'll make the motion for the use of the lagoon system for the fireworks show.
I'll second.
And moved and seconded to allow them to use the sewer lagoon facility trail up there, do the fireworks. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
In the past, that we insisted that the operator, have liability insurance and name
Yes.
the village?
Yes.
They're all gonna be listed. The Lions Club, the DDA, the village, and the township.
Because they all put money towards it.
Do we typically insist on some sort of a contract, or we just buy product and we let them use it up there? And
I get a copy of their contract that they have
Right.
with their supplier, is what we've done in the past.
So I'm assuming at the very least, they're not getting their money for the product until they give us the insurance coverage
Correct.
verification.
Once they get
The
to
federal
a certain
permit.
point, they do want half down, and that's the Lions Hall, so I gotta take care of that,
Okay.
the way I understand.
Either way, we're not giving them anything until we get insurance
Correct.
Right.
verification.
Right. It's another one I think we're not sticking our neck out for, you know. And I know the township is going ahead with their bill.
I mean, do they have any kind of an agreement that says we're going to put on a fireworks show at such a date?
I haven't received anything from them yet, except for just,
That is usually in the contract that, before in the past, the company that did it, it does state the date, the time,
Right.
who's doing it.
that
And I
actual
told, I gave them a
does
copy of that.
everything. They have to even add in, even on the fireworks permit, they have to add in what they call a rain day. If that's rained out where they can't do it,
Right,
they have to guarantee you at least your product, you know.
so they don't just take their
I
money
just
around.
assume we need some kind of a basic
Right.
agreement that the village council
Yeah.
can approve. This is, we're gonna put on a fireworks show, have a rain day alternate.
pretty much making them go by all of the, I say that the Lions Club's kind of stepped up to take care of it, but I'm kind of making them follow all the guidelines and the rules that we did through Wolverine when we were doing it.
Wolverine was your supplier?
Yeah, and they were the insurance policy holder basically, but we always got copies of all that, so. I told them that's the only way we do it, you know. You guys follow these guidelines and everything, so that everybody's safe and have fun.
Who pays for the rest of the money? The chamber kicks in some and the Lions kick in some?
The DD in the township.
The large portion.
DDA puts in
Lions.
3,800,
Yeah.
Yep.
and township, I think, put in 2,000. And we put in 3,000 before, in the past years.
Once you see something, you're probably gonna have to have another vote from the village council then, I assume.
But can we get a preliminary one, so they can know the,
You can just make it subject to the final execution
Okay.
of the written agreement. As,
Pending final agreement.
yeah, pending subject to execution of final agreement.
is that a motion, Lloyd?
Yes?
We made it to who can second it.
Hang on, and was that for 3,000 then, or,
Yes,
but again, pending final agreement?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
No money without insurance
Correct.
verification.
Been moved and seconded to approve the $3,000 after we get all the final paperwork and proof of insurance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Air Advantage lease termination.
Air Advantage will no longer be having their internet antenna on top of our water tower effective October 10th. They will be paying the lease agreement amount of $300 a month to us. Until then, after that, it'll be done. I did reach out to them to ask them, or to remind them basically of the 45 days they have to get their equipment off from our tower. And also to ask if they are going to discontinue service in the area, just because I'm curious since they supply our internet here at the village office, so. Kinda curious.
Yeah,
So
so
it would
we
be
don't know at
important
this
to know.
point why they're pulling.
Their notice says, however, the current economic climate has caused us to exercise our option not to renew the lease agreement. So that's all I know.
So then who would we get?
They were running a lot of the cable through every which way. I don't know if they got them.
Right, and they might still service us, they have a different antenna somewhere that picks up this area, I have no clue. Like I said, they weren't this is exactly what I got.
Kind of vague.
But they have the right to terminate their lease agreement with us, so we don't have to act on it or
They take
anything,
care of it.
just,
Anybody wanna guess how long we've had this agreement with them?
I know,
You know, you should know. Since 2006, wasn't it?
yes, it was.
I was gonna say 20 years.
And I got a good run.
So are you gonna do some checking to see?
We could get Frontier here, I mean, through our phone company, they offer it, yeah. So it's not an issue for us here, I'm just kind of curious if they're gonna still service. Yeah. So, no action needed for that, right, Mr. Denney, just
No.
information.
That's it on that then for now?
Yep.
Okay. Back to public time.
So I'll pass around, these are the pictures that I would have passed around last month. I didn't bother printing this month's pictures, although I can assure you they're all on my hard drive. But you have 2 complaints in there, one that you would have gotten last month, one this month. Dozens and dozens of infractions are on here. People cannot help themselves from parking on sidewalks. I have no idea why. But we got more important things to talk about, because you guys just passed an application that has nothing to do with what actually goes on in Metamora days. And Mr. Denney, great lawyer arguments, but I don't care if this has been going on for 4 years, 40 years, or 400 years, like I said last time. That is absolutely inadequate and negligent that you would pass an application that is missing the things that you say you require, that alone. And I know that the police will coordinate something, I've seen them out there for years, but that should absolutely be on file here, we should know what's going on. I also want to note that a lawyer has probably never run a large-scale professional event with thousands of people coming in. You don't know, you never know who's coming to an event like that. You have no idea. And then guess what? There are a lot of people who can afford a lot of lawyers. So yes, you haven't gotten a claim yet, but you just never know when that's going to happen. And a lot of things not out there happening bad is a lot of us having to be extra super careful, especially with all those side-by-sides that have been driving around out there for years. And Mr. Clerk, we don't need just a tweak on that application, we need an overhaul. If you ever looked at any of the applications for any of the other place, special events, absolutely need an overhaul. And you, as a former fire chief, should know that. Also, I want to note that there seems to be a very different standard. When Mark Frank came and he had an event that he wanted, people scrutinized it. People demanded more. You guys have had 2 months now, since I pointed this out, to go back to the chamber and say, hey, we need better. You've had a month since I filed that complaint with Tina. So no, it's not just springing it on them. And you know what? They have some of these plans. I have no doubt they have some of these plans. They should have provided them. And you should have been demanding it all these years. And the fact that this only started 10 years ago, that you made them start, that's just disgusting. And you know what? It's grown a whole lot in 10 years. So, all right. So I noticed that the hay was mowed. Do we have a contract with the hay mowers? We have no liability insurance. No, I wasn't home when it happened. I saw the day it did, but any cones or, work or tractor signs saying, hey, gotta stay out of the park, we got agricultural work going on. Anything out there to protect the public who might be using it? I doubt it, just like there has been in the past. I want to say that with the water line, it's been more than 3 years now since you guys passed that this could happen. I mean, how many more years can we drag this out? And the year 2024, we've got people in space, living in space, and we can't get water out a couple miles. And yeah, the lawyers just want to drag this fight out a lot longer. It's ridiculous. That's the best we can do, huh? So I bothered to run off the model ethics ordinance and put it in your packets. I hope you all read it, because I think we need one here. No doubt you will not pass one, but you absolutely need to know what would be in it. Because we got a lot of folks in here who I don't think understand the ethics of the responsibility you've taken on. Let's talk about this park, which should have had a map in your packet if the chamber was doing what they should be doing. This is Metamora Community Park. It is named so in the recreation plan that no doubt this village and township paid so much money for. It's called Metamora Community Park, 40 acres. On August 13th, it will be 11 years old. And still no signs. We're gonna maybe build a pavilion. We can't put a sign out. Anybody been to Oakwood Lake Park? It's off of Oakwood Road in Oregon Township, or Oxford Township. All they have is a parking lot, and they have a couple of signs, cheap signs. And guess what? It's a park, and it's got miles and miles of trails. We have trail here. At any point in the past 11 years, you could have put a sign out there to let people know they could use that $350,000 investment of taxpayer money. And so how you guys keep justifying to yourselves that it's not a park, even though you've been out there with your daughter using the park. It's just absolutely insane to me. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Any other public time?
Greg Wise, 1213 Kyle Road. I'm disappointed Mr. Hamilton didn't stick around. Because I don't know if any of you got his flyer. We got it in the mail Saturday, where he claims he's against the status quo. And I think it's sort of interesting since he's the incumbent. I'm the challenger. And today, on his Facebook page, he posted this new flyer, which I presume is gonna be mailed out, claiming that Williams' opponent will just be a rubber stamp for big government expansion. And Williams' opponent will vote to keep the status quo usual way of big government. And I take great offense at that. When I was in the district court as magistrate, my courtroom was the first courtroom that started doing video arraignments. That's not the status quo. We didn't say, yeah, keep bringing the prisoners over from the jail. No, we did it by remote, by video, directly from the jail to the courtroom. In 2013, the state of Michigan eliminated one of our district judges. I, along with the judges, worked to reallocate the workload. Originally, we had a circuit judge hearing 20% of the district cases. We found that it made more sense for Judge Barnard, the only district court we had left, to hear all the criminal cases, and we had one of the circuit judges hear landlord-tenant, and the probate judge hear general civil. I've never been the status quo. Mr. Hamilton wants to say that. You know, by the same token, he likes to paint himself as against the status quo. But you know, the vast majority of things, including the truth in taxation, which was just passed, which resulted in like a 7% increase in taxes, but it would have been if it hadn't been passed. And I'm not saying it shouldn't have passed, but it was a unanimous vote. Mr. Non-Quo, he voted for it, but yet he has the nerve to put online that I'm a rubber stamp for big government expansion. I've lived here for 37 years. I don't take a back seat to anybody when it comes to taking care of taxpayer money that comes to whether it be the village, the township, or the county. You know, and I'm really disappointed that he left. He says he participates in township, county, Tea Party, Republican meetings. Well, I can tell you this month, in July, he missed both the Lapeer Township Board meeting and the Metamora Township Board meeting. I was at both of them. And if you ever watch the videos, because all the county commission are on YouTube, to say he actively participates is a real stretch. He says very little. Some of the commissioners say a lot. He says very little. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say tonight. Is that I'm very disappointed that he left because I wanted him to hear it. You know, I mean, he's gonna claim that I'm for big government expansion. People who know me know that's not true. But you wonder what people believe when they see it online, or again, I presume it's going to be a mail. Thank you very much for letting me speak tonight, and again, I appreciate your vote on August 6th. Thank you.
Could you tell me, what is your district, includes which
It's
townships?
all of Metamora Township, including the village, all of Lapeer Township, and the west half of Attica, precinct 2, which is everything west of Lake Pleasant Road. When they, after the 2020 census, when they redid the districts, they really changed them up. Metamora had always been in with Hadley for as long as I can remember. But this time they went more north-south. So it's Metamora Township, Lapeer Township, and the west half of Attica. The east half of Attica is in a different district. Thank you all.
Any more public time?
I would just like to say I appreciate council taking this water issue seriously, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing to get to the bottom of this, and also making the commitment to not ship our water out until we, get to the bottom of what is actually going on here. We appreciate it.
Any more? Not, I'll entertain one more motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Which one do we want?
Then moved to second to adjourn.